Hi there. I'm JC. I go by JC Moon Spirit on this page, and today we are having a tarot talk. So welcome back. It's been a while since we've done one of these things, so bear with me. I'm learning a whole new system, a whole new way of being in the world today, and I'm going to bring you along with me for the journey. So let's learn about how to use tarot as a self-care tool, shall we? One of the things I like to teach my students, especially because I teach tarot, I also teach Reiki, I teach yoga, and I teach transformational flow, is the pentacle spread. It is the pinnacle of my practice as a daily card reader. So what the pentacle spread traditionally is a 5 or 6 card reading that shows different lenses that you look at your life through. The way that I use this for self-care is by using a 6 card version, and I use one placement for mentality, one for emotionality, one for spirituality, one for physicality, one for divinity, and then the significator card in the middle to kind of show what's going on. So significator is going to be our biggest one to handle. It is kind of like a witchy card for the day. It covers the influences at work in your life. It covers the environment that you're in vibrationally. And it's kind of like the present card. So if you're used to reading cards that are 3 card spreads, one for past, one for present, one for future, the significator is the present card. So when I pull this spread, it is helpful to understand that I'm doing this with the intention of understanding how to take better care of myself. So it gives me a way to understand how I'm operating on all of those different levels of myself. So yeah, if you're familiar with this in yogic principle, it's kind of like the Panchamaya Kosha model. It's the 5 layered self model. So there's one for the physical body's needs, one for the mental and emotional, one for the energetic life force body, one for your consciousness as a whole, and then your connection to source is a whole other level. And you work with all 5 of those, and it's really helpful for personal healing. It's also a really nice model for using for philosophy discussions. It's a really nice model for using when you're meditating as well, especially if you're using that in your energy healing practice. So for me, I teach Reiki, as I said, and when I am meditating for a self-healing through Reiki, I'll use the hand movements, I'll use the symbols, and then I'll step back and I'll lower those expectations again and just feel what's present as that life force is moving through me, because Reiki is universal life force energy. And using that Panchamaya Kosha information helps me to get into the vibe where I am in the same room with Reiki, and then I can sort of step into the role as the Reiki. So I'm becoming aligned energetically with what it is that I'm engaging with directly and willfully. And I'm making that choice because I want to feel better. I want to feel full of life. I want to feel connected to the universe and to my practices. And that's what Reiki is all about. It's not about being a protagonist or a practitioner in the same way that you would if you were casting a spell, but it is helpful to understand a little bit about that. So I've gone on a wild tangent, but anyway, I teach a lot about this. If you want to know more about it, you can reach out at 4oflikekind at Gmail, or you can look for us at the same name, 4oflikekind, on Instagram or Facebook. You can look us up on YouTube. We've got a lot of content there about these sort of things, and we have a website as well, so that's www.4oflikekind.com. You can see all of the different offerings that me and my partner Rory and her parents Alsong and Spirit Soaring are all offering right now. And with that said, spiel's out of the way, let's get into the cards of the day. So this deck that I'm using today is the Everyday Witch Tarot by Deborah Blake. It's one of my favorite decks I've ever used. I've had this deck now for about 8 years. I got it as a gift when I first moved to Colorado. I bought this at Herbs and Arts in Denver off Colfax Avenue. So if anybody wants to go down there and check that out, support a local pagan business, all power to you. I really love their selection of decks, and like I said, I've been using this almost daily for about 8 years now. And yeah, so let's get into the reading itself. So the first placement I have in the spread is mentality. This goes in the bottom left corner, and It covers the mental state, the perspective I'm having, what the traffic is like upstairs. It helps me to identify archetypally, I want to say. I'm not sure if that's actually a word, archetypically. I'm not sure if that's a word. Um, but anyway, so the King of Swords card looks like this. It's really cool. I love the use of the color blue there. This is connected to the element of air. It's connected to the mind itself. So as far as a mentality card goes, you're right on the money with this one. He's the ruler of the mentality. He's the one with the optimal perspective. He has a really keen insight when it comes to plans, when it comes to strategy. So if you think of like the Greek goddess Athena, it's sort of that energy, right? If we were to look at this a little further, we could even go into like Zeus or Hephaestus as like the tactician, the maker, the one who carves the path where something hasn't been done before and makes it a part of the whole narrative for the whole thing. So the mentality there is that you're the ruler in the right mentality. You're on top of your organization. You're acting according to plan, and you're slaying the system. So if there's something going on that isn't really serving you, you can nip that in the bud. You can show up as the authority in your own personal life. And so when you dress up in that kind of mentality, when you prepare yourself on that mental level, you feel powerful. You feel like you can knock down any obstacles in your way, like you are the sovereign of your own narrative. So, on to card 2. This is getting really fun. We got the Fool. So the Fool is the very, very first card in the Major Arcana. It's actually marked at 0. So this is the supreme starting point. The Fool gets a bad rep for being an idiot sometimes and for stepping into things before he fully understands what's going on. I like that this deck also has some gender nonconforming and non-binary archetypes. In this case, this is shown as a woman. So when you have the Fool, you have optimism on your side. You are beginning a new journey as a new version of yourself, and you are open to the unfolding of the new narrative. You are optimistic about any outcomes that you're expecting, and you are willing to see where it goes. You're honestly just willing to see where it goes. You're willing to roll with the punches. You're willing to soar to new heights. You have a very upbeat sort of personality when this comes into play as well most of the time. And I would say, especially when you're looking at it from an emotionality lens, it's good to be optimistic. It's also good to be cautiously optimistic. So the shadow side of that would be not looking before you leap, not checking out to see if there's any risks or sharp rocks at the bottom before you take that leap of faith. But it is necessary for us to accept that all good things are changes. All good things are changes. So in my life, I felt a need to move out of a place where I felt anxious and into an alignment with something that felt more like it honored myself and my intention to be more happy and more focused and more dedicated to more aspects of my life than just doing dishes or just doing laundry or just, grunting through getting some work and things done. I went on a whole tangent, as it were, and realized that I wasn't very satisfied, and so I sat down and started something new, and it felt really great to do that. And there's a lot of that kind of theme coming through. Spoiler alert, there's a huge newness coming into the frame today, so we're going to be unpacking that, as it were. I use that phrase a lot with clients, unpack that. Let's unpack that. So let's look at this one. This is our Two of Wands. It is our spirituality lens. It's interesting that almost all of these cards are brunettes. One of them even sort of has my hairstyle, so that's interesting. But the Two of Wands represents having the world in your hand and needing to choose what you use. So I'll go even further. You can choose to use what you know how to use, right? So for me, that had a lot to do with choosing to meditate. I have a 200-hour registered yoga teacher training under my belt. I'm certified to teach yoga. So one of the things I did today to claim ownership of my narrative was I got out of bed this morning before sunrise and I meditated for 35 minutes, uninterrupted, to the sounds of rain. And it doesn't rain very much where I live, so I decided to make my own rain. I listened to it on the internet, and I rolled with it, and I had a great time. I unlocked a lot of stuff in my ribs, and I unlocked a lot of stuck bad feeling energy around my solar plexus and heart chakra connections, and that made me feel like it was easier for me to sing today. It was easier for me to chant today. I had a lot of fun playing around with those concepts when I went out and was running some errands today. I got to choose how I showed up. Identity is another tool. We don't always think of it as a tool because we don't work with it the same way as a drill or a screwdriver or a chainsaw, but our identity shows up in the space without us having to announce it. So my personal identity is so much more than just what you're going to find here on this channel or on the internet or through my Facebook posts. It is so multifaceted. You could think of it as like a big gown energy. I'm very whimsical, mystical, fanciful, bad bitch, all witch archetype all the time. But there are a lot of parts of me that have struggled even recently with the concept of choosing how I want to show up in a space over choosing how the best environmental reaction can be gauged. So, like with everything going on in the world right now, this is not what you see when you meet me most of the time on the streets. It's not that I don't have experience in that. It's just a conscious choice that I'm feeling drawn to because I need to survive. I have a lot of things going well for me in my life, and I want to continue to see that happening. And yeah, back to the choosing what you use, identity, tarot, meditation practices, eating healthy foods, getting enough water, getting enough rest. Those are tools. You know how to use them. You have to choose to use them though. Okay, so things like twos in tarot and the minor arcana are usually about a choice. You can pick an either or. I can do meditating for half an hour today, or I can wake up and have that second cup of coffee before 8 p.m. or 8 a.m. rather. I can choose to have the lemon water first and then have the coffee and see how that makes me feel, or I can jump straight into 2 cups of coffee and see about a tea after that. There's unlimited choices, and we're the only ones that choose how far the limits really go most of the time, at least in the West. So where this is coming from for me today was about choosing how I show up, choosing how I navigate, and making decisions based on what I had available. So it wasn't about doing a lot of preparation ahead of time. Even though I did get cards that dealt with sovereignty and dealt with being the one who takes the great leap of faith, that great leap of faith is deeply connected to this spirituality sector because it's telling me just show up. Show up exactly as you are, be authentic, be your full self, and see where that gets you today. So moving on, rolling with the punches. We've got the Temperance card. Temperance was 4. So 4 in the spread was physicality. Excuse me. And I do this on a very, very, very simple level. So I'll show you the spread later, but 4 deals with the root chakra. It deals with the color red. It deals with the Emperor archetype. So you're thinking about building foundations and things. That's why I put the physicality thing on the 4th card. So physicality here is represented by Temperance. Temperance is huge on alchemy. It's big on making changes and being changeable. It's about the becoming stages as well. So in today's story, for today's self-care, yoga asana practice is something that I take really seriously, but it doesn't take up the fullness of my yoga practice. I think it's more important to consider some of the other 7 limbs of yoga than just the physical poses. I love that she's in tree pose here because it's one of my favorites. It's my favorite balancing pose for sure. It's really easy to get into most of the time for me on both sides, and it helps me to stay grounded, but easy, right? Because you don't want to be too rigid and forget to breathe. So when I see this card, I know that it's okay to get grounded, but it's not okay to stay stuck. So you need to allow change to happen because all good things are changes. And if you want to manifest more changes, you can do something about it. You can be the one that steps in and makes the change happen. You can be the divine force that shows up for yourself today. So that's what the divine was trying to show me about the Temperance card today in my physicality. So that meant if I felt the need that I needed to go to the grocery store, I could do that, and I did that. If I felt like I was called to a meditation practice, which my cards have been telling me to do for over a month, then I went ahead and I did that today, and I feel better for it. I have more energy now, today, at 4:30 my time, than I have in over a month. I've been tired for over 3 years, and today somehow I have enough energy to do this. So I think it has a lot to do with changing those mindsets and being willing to sit in the changeability of a becoming stage without clinging to any set outcome. You can just enjoy kind of being the Play-Doh and molding yourself as the like toddler playing with the ball of Play-Doh at the same time. You can have that, and it's a very full experience when you do that. So, moving on, the King of Wands. This is a really wonderful card for creatives. I am a creative, my partner is a creative, so are the rest of my family. We are all very creative. And the reason I say that is because the King of Wands takes your life in a new direction and pushes you into new territory through the act of will. So let's get into that a little bit. Will isn't just the idea that you can do something or that you want to do something. It's not just the feeling that you deserve to do something. It's not some psychic power that just shows up and says, you know what, you can do this because you said you could do this. It is part effort, part equilibrium, part imagination, part drive, right? So this is a verb as much as it is a noun, as much as it is an adjective. I'm getting really waxing metaphorical here, but it's tarot, so I can do that. If you think of an Imagineer for like Disney, they're very King of Wands energy. They have the information about how far the science has reached so far and what the potential of that could be. And then they add a dynamic element, they style it in such a way that it becomes interactive art. And when you see something like the King of Wands come in, it's nice to think about it as if you were an Imagineer. Your imagination is kicking in with your engineering skills, and you are able to create an entire new way of looking at your reality and explaining that and engaging other people with that. So there's a whole mastery of will thing that's happening here. It's not quite the magician level where you have all of the different sacred tools out in front of you and you're making them work for you, making the broom dance or whatever, but you are doing more than just talking to your cat about it. You have acquired the knowledge. He has lots of books and things in this office. He is the one writing the story. So it's important to have that kind of perspective about yourself, especially if you do the sort of work that I do, where you work in people's psyche a lot. I work in people's psyches a lot, especially as a yoga teacher. I like to consider myself a trauma-informed yoga teacher. I've been informed by my own trauma, and I've learned how to deal with other people's trauma over the years. And when you're working in that kind of King of Wands energy where you're trying to create something from an emotional place, a mental place, a physical action, there needs to be a level of integration that happens there for your psyche to feel like it's engaged in a safe way. Because when you feel safe, you can create. So you need to kind of consider that when you're going throughout your day today. I have the Ace of Wands as the Significator card. This is a beautiful way of like wrapping everything up and just putting the chef's kiss on it. This wraps it up with a bow. It's really nice because you can see the scroll, you can see the books, you can see the plants, you can see the music notes. There's some paintbrushes and an easel there, or not an easel, a palette there. And there's the fire, right? Because wands are the fire. Suit in the minor arcana. So this is about taking the first step, lighting your own fire, being the light, getting creative, and getting mastery over your own narrative, right? So let's unpack this a little bit more. How do you use this to get self-care? I'm throwing a lot of big terms at you. I'm giving you a lot of philosophy. How do you apply this, right? So for me, what I did, the very first thing I did was I got my mind right. Okay, there's lots of songs. The first one that comes to mind is Two Joints. I think it's by Slightly Stupid. And in that song, I believe he says, hard work good, hard work nice, but first take care of head. And so what he means by that is you got to get your mind right, because otherwise you're acting from a place of fear, you're acting from a place of disengagement where you're not really acting as your full self. And granted, the song is about ganja, it's about, you know, getting your vibration a little bit higher, as it were. And I wanted to approach it with that kind of mentality where it could be fun and it wasn't something I needed to have in an ordered way. So the first thing I did this morning, I set a goal and I set an alarm. to get up a little earlier than sunrise so that I would have a dedicated period of time where I could just focus on relaxing my mind and getting my mind to agree with my body. So that's a big practice for me as a yoga teacher and a Reiki master, because when the mind is not engaging with the body, there could be all kinds of things that are going on. That could be anxiety, it could be depression, it could be PTSD, you could be in a triggered state. You could also just not feel safe. You could also just be really stressed. And if you want to relieve stress, what I would invite you to do is when you first wake up in the morning, just close your eyes. Maybe you listen to some rain sounds like I did today, and you just breathe. I sometimes will use mudras when I'm working, and I like to just open them and put them down on my lap, and I'll up my shoulders like this. So I balance the head over the heart over the pelvis. I make sure that my spine feels neutral. Sometimes I'll sway a little bit from right to left and see how that feels. And then I'll just close my eyes and I'll breathe. And the way I like to breathe in meditation may not be the way you like to breathe in meditation, but I'll guide you through what I do. I breathe in, and the first place I feel is the low belly, and I feel that expand out at the top and push against the ribs where the diaphragm's getting engaged. And then I can feel the ribs expand out to the sides. And I feel the top of the chest open a little bit. So when I first start, my back isn't loose enough because it's early in the day. And most of the inhale comes through the back of the body, believe it or not. So most of the breathing is done in the back of the body. And when that is tight, it's usually because we either haven't stretched, we're stressed, we're tense, we didn't sleep well. There's lots of reasons. So for me, I hadn't been sleeping well. I got up and I sat in a chair, cold metal chair, and I was tensing up. So the first thing I had to do was breathe in a nice warm breath, and sigh it out. I just kept going with that and listening to the sounds. And then when I would find that my mind was trying to engage me in a narrative and tell me a story or start a conversation, sort of like when you're looking at your phone, you're talking to your friends, and your friend just out of nowhere says something completely out of pocket, like, hey, did you feed the cat? And you put your phone down and you're like, what was that? What was that about? And you ask it, right? And sometimes you can catch your psyche, and your psyche says, oh, I'm caught, and it just shuts up. It just stops engaging and it goes away because you've recognized that something's going on there. I use my next exhale to just sort of wash that out. So when I meditate, I like to listen to things that remind me of running water, like waterfalls or rain or singing bowls, because it makes it feel very refreshing for me when I can listen to that wave-like sound of the breath and I can feel the wave-like movement of the inhalations and the exhalations, emptying everything out and cleansing that whole energetic space there. So like I said, first thing that I did was I meditated and I put myself in the driver's seat. I got very calm, and when I decided I was done with the practice, I didn't set a standard time. Sometimes I will, but I didn't set a standard time today. And the reason I didn't do that was because I wanted to feel completely in control. If it was a 5-minute meditation, it was only going to be 5 minutes. That was enough. The goal was just to do meditation as an activity, to show up and know that I was showing up for myself to get my mind right. And then when my mind and my body were synced up and it felt like it was time to come out, it was easy to do. And I realized 35 minutes had gone by. So I'm one of those people that used to have a really hard time with meditation. And I'm someone who still struggles sometimes with being the one who's in control of my narrative most of the time. So to show up for myself without placing a limitation on how much time I was going to give it made it feel less like I was waiting for it to end, because it wasn't necessarily 100% comfortable. I'm selling it like it's the most comfortable thing in the world, but it wasn't the most comfortable thing in the world. It was actually kind of challenging. But over time, sitting with it became more comfortable. Breathing and knowing that all I was doing was sitting in a chair, breathing and allowing myself to feel the ground beneath me, feel the air conditioning touching my skin, hearing the birds wake up outside the window. That made me feel calmer. It made me feel more rested. Even it helped me to recharge the tank because I was disengaging from the practice of amping up all of the anxieties, amping up all of the little bastard voices that were just like, you have to be the best at this or you suck. And that wasn't helping me, it was hurting me. So I didn't want to do that anymore. On to the next thing. So emotionality. The practicality, the practical step of the Fool is to do something new without any expectation that it's going to go wrong. So I woke up, I meditated. As soon as my meditation was over, I walked out my front door and I took my sunrise selfie, because when I am teaching a student, what I like to do is hold myself to the same standard that I'm asking of my student. So my student right now is in Georgia. She's on a different time than I am, but we can connect from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. or 9 a.m. For the first chunk of her day. And I schedule out little portions of the day where I chat with my student and I do updates. We talk about the cards she pulled for the day. We talk about how her day is going. We talk about how her self-care practices are going. We talk about what her goals are for the day, whether she has to work or not work, what she's getting accomplished, what she doesn't want to get accomplished, that sort of stuff. And that helps me to have a good bandwidth of where she's at vibrationally, because I'm working with her energetically a lot of the time. And it also helps me to know how our communication is going, right? Because we chat through Discord, we chat through Messenger, and that means that most of our communication is written, and we're both writers. So that helps us a lot, because we can go back and look at the way that we said something and pick it apart a little bit, kindly, but we unpack things like our phraseology from time to time. And so we do morning affirmations and sunrise selfies. Because if you go outside, both of us have thyroid things too. So we want our hormones to regulate. We have high cortisol most of the time. So what we do is we go outside and we get 10 minutes of sunlight a day during dawn, because that's really helpful for the brain. It's very helpful for hormone flushes to be easier, and it reduces cortisol in the body, just to have a little bit of a nature practice anyway, but especially at sunrise. So we make that an intentional part of our day every day. I went outside, I got my selfie, I came back in, I did my affirmations, and I sent those into the chat. I didn't expect that Discord wasn't going to load, or that Messenger was going to crash, or that my phone was going to be out of battery, or anything like that. I just went at it as quickly as I could before I could think twice about it, kind of like I'm doing now. I'm not very edited right now. I'm not pretending to be polished. I had really nice information gathered about a reading that I pulled today, and I'm showing you what I do with this so that you might be interested in applying your own practice this way. And that's another leap of faith, right? I'm not very good at just showing up for myself when it comes time to do recordings that are really polished and perfect, because I feel a lot of expectation to get things right. I was an actor, I was a singer, I was a dancer, I was a performer for a lot of my life. And I got away from that for a while because it didn't feel like it was emotionally supportive. It didn't feel like it was mentally easy. It felt very frustrating to constantly be planning the next thing I was going to say to an audience. And so I just decided, you know what, I'm going to lean into the Fool today. I'm going to do something new. This is a brand new program. It's the first time I've done this, and I'm going to see where it goes. I want to see what happens. Yeah. There's so many ums in this video I'm going to have to edit out. Oh my goodness, there are so many ums, but it's totally okay. It's all good. The Two of Wands, making decisions from a spiritual place. So that to me feels a lot like take intuitive guidance, pay attention to what resonates with you, and move on. You know, don't waffle about whether or not that feels logical or not logical. Just move through it. Get over the awkwardness of it, make a decision, flip a coin if you have to, but make a decision and make it quick. So yeah, one of the things that I think kind of threw the family for a loop today was I decided to go to the grocery store. My roommate had decided he was going to go to the grocery store for us, which was great. Yesterday I spent some time getting the meal plan together, getting the grocery list put together, and he was going to help me out. And then I thought about it, and he had an appointment today, and I didn't want to ask him to because of the nature of the appointment. And also because he wanted to come home. He wanted to have his breakfast. He wanted to get on with his day. He had a client coming that his sweetie was going to be taking the lead on, and he was going to have a project that he was going to work on with the client. So I wanted him to feel prepared for his day, and I was ready to go. By the time he got back and I left, it was already 11 a.m. I'd been up for 4 hours. I'd had coffee. I ate breakfast. I did my morning meditations. I did all of the things that I was supposed to do. I was banging it. I was ready to go. And that was like one of those what are you doing there, JC? Things that happened in the day today. And it just felt like the right call. And before that point, I'm wearing a dress. I'm very high femme right now. I'm very into like my witchy sovereignty at the moment. I'm vibing. I'm liking it. I still put on my pants and I put on my sweater and looked very like creative, like saucy librarian sort of thing. Put my hair up because I don't leave the house like this very much anymore with everything going on. I just don't want to be targeted. I don't want to be attacked. And I have passing privilege. So I just pass as a dude most of the time. So I left the house and went grocery shopping just authentically as myself, wearing basically this underneath a sweater because I didn't want to compromise the feeling that I was in an outfit that made me feel powerful or sexy. Even though I've had this for 12 years, like this is an old frock. This is a 12-year-old frock I got when I was a junior in high school. And I've had it for 12 years. It still fit, and I was feeling myself in it. So I didn't give that up to do this. And I'm talking about the outfit a lot because I guess the external nature of my gender identity has been something I've done a lot of shadow work on over the years, and there just comes a point where you don't want to compromise it, but you still don't want to be targeted. So what I chose to do for myself was to not compromise it by taking it off, by putting it back in the drawer, by hanging it back up in the closet and saying this part of myself is unacceptable. I just decided, you know what? I will pick an outfit to go with this that has the same vibe. So the khakis I wore are some that I tried to dye black when I started my new job as a server. And they didn't dye black properly. It came off some kind of purple and they looked like they were tie-dyed, basically. So there's just like this really Rorschach looking tie-dye thing happening on these pants. And they've got like a hole in them. And then I had this really nice fluffy cable sweater that I wore over it with this big like neck on it. It was so fluffy. It was so lovely. So I wear something nice and soft with something very like artsy, a little like grungy, gritty. And then people usually just they leave me alone or they admire the outfit because I give off vibes that are just kind of like art teacher, mom friend kind of thing. So yeah, I did that. I went to the library today. I found a movie that I'm going to watch with my family later because I just want to have something cozy to chill to with them. We don't get a whole lot of time where all of us are available. And so I try to make the most out of that. I make an occasion of it. And yeah, I did that. Like I said, I had all of my practices and I just showed up to each and every one of them without expecting anything to go wrong and just choosing from a place of knowing that I was making the choice in a sane place in a way that felt safe, that I wasn't being challenged by anybody, and just acknowledging that nobody was trying to challenge me on the decisions I was making today felt empowering. It felt like having the world in the palm of your hand, like the card shows. And that's kind of how I choose to practice my self-care and my mental health level and my emotional health level is like, unless you're being told explicitly by someone that you are not approved of or you are not accepted in this situation, you don't have to take it away from yourself first. So sometimes people will just be like, I don't like what you're wearing. I think you should change. And it's still up to you, especially if you're an adult, to decide whether or not you're going to take on that feedback and take that into yourself and then make that decision to change to fit the box for someone else. You're going to let them carve down those edges for you. And I don't let other people carve down my edges most of the time. I make the decision to do what I want to do most of the time from a place of knowing that I'm the one that gets to choose. Um, but there are things like taking care of a family where we're not always allowed to be the one to make the decision from a self-possessed standpoint, as it were. And that card to me today resonated with the concept that if I chose from the self-possessed standpoint to take better care of myself, I would also still be living the practice that I was working with my student. So I would still be living in alignment with my goal. So there's a lot of weird archetypes that are going on under the surface with all of these cards too. But if the goal was to walk the same spiritual path that I teach, to walk the same spiritual path that I offer to clients and students, then I freaking nailed it today. I've nailed it today. The physicality thing, temperance. I approached my day as everything that I am without having to wear all of the hats one at a time. I showed up this morning and was a meditator. I'm a student of meditation as much as I am a yoga teacher. I have only been a yoga teacher for about a year or so, so sometimes I still even feel like a yoga student. Um, so taking away some of the senses, engaging with other parts of the sentence or the senses, practicing ahimsa by not harming myself or harming somebody else or taking joy away from somebody else. Knowing that engaging with my practice didn't cost me or anybody else anything today was just a relief. And allowing myself to come in and do this today has been a relief. Now that I'm in it, I've just accepted the fact that I'm going to talk with my hands now, and I'm not saying as much, but I know what I'm saying. I've been doing card reading now for a decade or more. Um, yeah, I was given my first deck when I was 17, so I got my first deck over a decade ago, and I've been reading for clients professionally since 2015. So I've been doing this for 11 years. I've been a Reiki master since 2020, so that was 6 years ago, and I've been a yoga teacher now for almost 2 years. So I just showed up and was wearing the different hats, but I wasn't choosing to wear one of them at a time in this ordered way. I was like, all of these things come from needing to understand myself better and knowing how I'm showing up in the world, knowing how I'm showing up in my practice, and naming the practice as just being me instead of naming the practice as being a meditator or being a yogi or being a card reader, because I don't think God cares about that all that much. I'm literally live right now. Is it important? I'm on a call right now. That is not important. I love you so much. Please close the door. That was my little one. So the King of Wands is your creative director, as I said, and I decided I wanted to weave in a little more time to get things accomplished. I wanted to do something creative for my business, and that's what I've done today. By coming on this call, by sitting down and doing my notes for my card reading, by looking at my card reading again and sending pictures of it into my group chat that I have with my friends who do my social media and stuff with me, so that they could make reels out of it for Facebook, so that we could make more Instagram content, so that we could work on our goals to post more, to be more available to people, and to let people know that we're here for them. That was really important to me because I felt like I was slacking in the way that I do that, because I don't do that the way that my friends do that. My friend will wake up in the morning and spend 4 hours of unbroken time just working on getting reels, posts, and challenges for Facebook and Instagram together, and I am not cut from that cloth. I don't want to do that. I don't know why necessarily I don't find that interesting, but I don't engage with that very well. It becomes very challenging for me mentally, and it becomes a very limiting cacophony of BS that I give myself, because I stress myself out when I have a hard time doing something because it should be easy. I think I have that gifted child thing going for me there, where it's just like, if you're not good at it the first time you do it, then obviously you suck, period. Like, full stop. You will never be good at this. Just stop it. And that's not healthy, and I'm working on it, and I still shadow work it. I've been working on it over a decade now, but I'm still working on it sometimes, especially when it comes to business, because money's kind of my final boss when it comes to shadow work. I care a lot about the way I make money. I care a lot about the way I show up for clients. I care a lot about the way that I show up for friends. And all of that sort of has to do with the way that I receive love. Money is just one of the ways that I do that. And it's been like grained into me since I was very small that unless you are really good at being the top dog at what you do, being creative is going to be too much of a challenge to be worth it. And so it's just always been a thing. And it wasn't anybody's specific fault. It's just the culture I live in, because I live in America where, yes, you can have anything you want as long as you're willing to do whatever it takes to get there. And as long as you know what it is that you're after and you have access to the resources to get there. And I haven't always had the know-how. I haven't always had the access. And I've had to figure out on my own how to do a lot of things. So figuring out that I wasn't very good at this took about a decade. But I'm still the one that everybody feels most comfortable with being on a video screen and talking about these things. has helped me a lot. And talking about them was how I got the answers the first time around when I was learning these things. And it's also how I share the teachings that have helped me. And it's how I'm doing this process now. So in that way, I'm stepping into the King of Wands thing. And through sheer force of will and the accumulation of all of this energy, I am directing you to now step into your own serenity and figure out what works for you to take the new step. That's that Ace of Wands. So you try something new. It might be spending $5-6 on a pack of Play-Doh, coming home and making a few runes for yourself. It might be building some, I built Mancala pieces as one of my goals this week. If you don't know what Mancala is, it's a little board game where you move 4 pieces around from different cups until one side is completely empty, and whoever has the most points in their bank on the other side wins the game. My 6-year-old and I recently started playing this, but my wife and I have played this for a long time. Well, my hubby wife and I have played this for a long time. And we didn't know the rules. We only knew you were supposed to have the most points at the end and that you needed to empty out a side to finish the game. But we had never played with stealing points from another person or anything like that. And we realized that we didn't have enough pieces. So I bought Play-Doh, and one of the things me and my sweetie and my kiddo did this week was we made Mancala pieces. And that engaged my jester archetype. It also engaged my inner child as well. So that was kind of fun. And it was just something creative off the wall that we did. And I enjoy doing things like that. I also enjoy that in like the wellness sector of my life as well. I have massage, they're massage tools, but they're little balls. They look like golf balls with spikes on. And I rub my feet or my hands on those to give myself a massage. This is called ball rolling. It's for fascia. And I work on my feet a lot because I also work as a server in a restaurant. So that in itself was a little bit of a therapy for me, and I didn't plan it out. I'm not going to start a whole new regimen about it right now, but I really enjoyed being able to just offer that to myself. And it was during a period of time where my kiddo also had a little downtime, so it felt like showing my kids something new is like a new way to take care of yourself that they hadn't considered before, because they see a ball and the first thing they want to do is they want to throw it at something. Whereas I see a ball and I think I can roll out and knot my foot with that. So yeah, find your humor, let yourself off the hook, and if you run into something that you have a hard time unpacking, reach out. I'd love to talk with you about it. We can pull cards over it. I can do you a Reiki session. We can have an asana class about it. You can tell me your story and I'll tell you mine, and we can get together and share things, maybe even over a cup of tea. Might be nice. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me for my mad ramblings today. I've really enjoyed this tarot talk, and I will see you again when I see you. All blessings be. Thank you.